fellow participants and panelists can hear me. If you please confirm.
Yes, I think if I can hear you, everyone can hear you.
Right. Thank you very much. I think it is a profound privilege to be able to speak to a South Asian forum in these times of conflict and turbulence and the internal and external pressures that we all face in our countries as well as in the region. So I'm really happy to be a part of this conversation. I mean, I'm not, I don't think it's fair to call it a keynote speech, because I'm just will make a few points for you all to ponder upon and then reflect, and then of course then express whatever you think about it, whether you agree with me or you have a different opinion. I think if we theoretically, I mean, I'm trying to, I'll try to put it simply, but theoretically, it is said that unless, and since we are speaking in the South Asian context, which means that we are speaking about 8 countries in the region, plus since we have friends from Iran and China, or expected from Iran and China to be on the panel, in the wider Asian region, but primarily in South Asia. In that context, I will speak. And so it is said theoretically that unless you have justice, you will not have peace. And by justice, we mean a realization of human rights. In our context, of course, but it is also contested. I mean, some other people say that unless you have peace, you will not have justice. I think in this case, in our South Asian case, both become relevant, because unless you have peace between the countries in the region, you cannot have justice within the countries, and within the countries, unless it is incumbent upon the state to be just, so that there can be peace. So I think it is, so both theories, as it were, become relevant in our case. One between the countries and one within the country. As far as and we impact each other. I mean, as civil society activists or human rights defenders, or people who belong to the enlightened intelligentsia of the South Asian region, we also need to challenge all the competing narratives of these nation states, or state nations, so to speak. Pakistan, India, the conflict between Pakistan and India actually has a larger impact. I mean, it on the whole region, and it keeps the region destabilized, as well as it keeps the region, in terms of commerce and trade, there's a big hurdle, because Pakistan and India actually, I mean, we all know. I mean, it's a very informed group of people. So we know the kind of the conflict that we have experienced over the last 73 years, but particularly since 1965, because the war in 1965 was a watershed event, after which things deteriorated rapidly. There were some interludes, peaceful interludes between the two countries, but this sort of Cold War continues, which has turned into hot wars 4 times. So that conflict is the real conflict in the region. I mean, that is the fundamental conflict in the region. But as far as the human rights situation goes, why that conflict actually impacts human rights situation in Pakistan, I'm more, relatively more informed about Pakistan than other countries. But I may have a view based on some, secondary knowledge of other countries also. Why that conflict impacts? Because every rights movement as Pakistan is branded pro-India. Likewise, any rights movement in India will be branded pro-Pakistan, even if it is not. Likewise, in Pakistan, if it is, for instance, the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement in the newly merged districts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the northwestern province, is continuously called either an Afghan or an Indian, sponsored movement. Likewise, in Balochistan, we see that the movement for the rights of the people of Baloch, it is also branded by the state as a movement fueled by Indian support, and a movement which is running under the Indian patronage. So you see the same happening in Kashmir, where the movement for the right of self-determination of Kashmiris there were, I mean, there is a pro-Pakistan sentiment. But Indian friends can correct me if I'm wrong, but that pro-Pakistan sentiment is not necessarily how the Kashmiri freedom or the liberation or the self-determination or a rights movement, whatever you wish to call it, started. I mean, it had started before the creation, before the partition of India, and so it is branded. And then in the Northeast, for instance, I mean, there were cases where when APSPA was enforced, I mean, people working in the Northeast, the rights movements in the Northeast in India were also accused of being supported by Pakistan. So so this is the situation where the conflict between India and Pakistan actually impact the rights movements, the political rights movements or economic rights movements that are run by indigenous populations in these countries, which may or may not have any contact whatsoever in many cases with each other's governments. So this is how broadly it impacts. In terms of the so what we need is that somehow through the democratic process, I don't see in the short run, I don't want to sound too cynical, but in the short run, I don't see things being resolved until the two populist, right-wing populist governments in Pakistan and India are at the helm of affairs, because they are the bloodline. I mean, they provide bloodline to each other. In Pakistan, the difference is that there's an all-powerful military that oversees and supervises the populist prime minister, whether selected or elected. That is for Babar to confirm. And in India, it's different. In India, it is actually sometimes the negative side of democracy that we experience, that we had experienced in case of Trump or Johnson or Duterte or Bolsonaro. I mean, we have experienced the same in India, in the rise of Modi that we observe. So these populist governments actually have a stake and have a vested interest in keeping these conflicts. I mean, they will lower the burner. For instance, I mean, Pakistan wants to lower the burner at the moment because of the Afghan end game has started, so that both our borders are not troubled at the same time. And likewise, India would raise the flame and would lower the burner as it suits its internal politics. So so this is the principal conflict that we need to speak about. As far as the the internal, I can speak more as I said earlier, more about what is happening within Pakistan. You see, Pakistan's current government has no commitment. I mean, the human rights is not a priority. Justice Ali Nawaz Chauhan hasn't joined as yet, but he will confirm that for the last 2 years. And Muhtarama Sadia Bukhari is also here. She will also confirm, because she's been very active in these processes, working with different human rights mechanisms as well as the courts, that there is no National Human Rights Commission, which is the statutory body for the last 2 years. It is since its establishment, it is the first time that the commission has no I mean, it is not even, the chairperson is not there and the commission is not functional. So there's a dormant National Commission for Human Rights. We are 2.5 years into Imran Khan's government, and for the last 2 years, there's no National Human Rights Commission. The Human Rights Commission of Pakistan is an independent body, and I'm glad to have 2 of our council members, Senator Babar and Sadia Bukhari, to be on this panel as well. But HRCP must not be confused with NCHR, as some friends in the larger South Asian region do. Ours is an independent membership organization. So there is no NCHR, which is the statutory body established by the parliament. There is no National Commission on Status of Women, which is functional. Since the retirement of the previous chairperson, nobody has been appointed to the National Commission on the Status of Women. So these 2 major important federal level bodies are dormant at the moment. We have some active provincial commissions, for instance, in Sindh. We have an active provincial commission on the status of women. But in Punjab, there is no provincial commission on the status of women chair as we speak. and which is the biggest province. So you see, these are it's not a priority. Then the issues that we face in Pakistan, I've spoken about a couple of political rights movements that we try to resolve the issues with kinetic means instead of a political negotiation, which I think is not the right way to resolve any of these issues, because I completely understand that a state wouldn't like to have an insurgency or a secessionist movement or a liberation war being fought on its territory. But how would you want to resolve it is the issue, and how a modern democratic state has to resolve it. I mean, what are the ways? So we see that not being followed in Pakistan. Plus, one of the major issues, when I'm speaking about civil and political rights first, then I'll quickly come to the economic, social, and cultural rights. So the major issue that we face is of enforced disappearances in Pakistan. It started from former FATA, which is the tribal areas which have been merged into KP a few years ago. The Khyber Pakhtunkhwa northwestern province that we have. So it started from there, but then in 2004 and Balochistan, but now it is all over the country. I mean, it is the incidents may be higher in some parts, the incidents may be lower in some other parts, but we have seen the same happening in Sindh in the last year. The highest numbers that we recorded were in Sindh in the last year, I mean in 2020. So you see that the enforced disappearances, the government actually promised, the incumbent human rights minister committed to bringing a bill, an act, through act of parliament, criminalize enforced disappearances, but they have failed to do that. She's one of the first things that she said was that she would criminalize enforced disappearances more than 2 years ago. Nothing worthwhile has happened. We have heard recently that the cabinet discussed the bill and would table it at some point, but it has not happened. We also see the other major issue that we see, and we know that security agencies, I mean, it is largely known and understood in Pakistan that security agencies are involved in making people disappear, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, sometimes for years, sometimes they're never found. So, that is one major issue that we face at the moment. The other issue that we face in terms of civil and political rights and fundamental freedoms is muzzling of voices, curbing free speech, or regulating free speech, if not curbing. There's a difference. I mean, we see sometimes that it is regulated, sometimes it is completely blacked out. For instance, there was a major political rally in Waziristan yesterday or day before yesterday, which was completely blacked out from mainstream press. One example. There are other examples. I mean, until some months back, you couldn't even criticize the political government. Now, what they are trying to do is that the National Committee, Standing Committee on Interior. Interior is our home department, which is the Interior Ministry that we have, which is in provinces, we call it Home Department, and at the federal level, Interior. So there is a National Assembly Standing Committee, which has proposed an amendment to the Criminal Procedure Code and Pakistan Penal Code, meaning thereby that anybody who will criticize, who will disrespect or intentionally ridicule the armed forces, there will be a punitive action. There will be a fine, and there can be a jail term. So that is something that I'm not sure whether the National Assembly or the Parliament will actually pass that bill or not. But you can see that this is, and why they are criticized. I mean, they're criticized. Nobody actually would want to criticize a state institution, completely understanding the importance of state institutions for the safety and security of a state. However, if any institution, for that matter, whether it is military or judiciary or any other executive arm of bureaucracy, who would interfere in the political matters or who are seen to be, breaking the law themselves, which they should be the custodians of course, in any civilized country, in any democracy, people have the right to criticize that institution or that individual. And that is something that we see that increasingly being curbed in Pakistan. Finally, coming to the economic, social, cultural rights, I mean, there's a problem with the education curriculum. I have read and been a part of some consultations about the changes in the Indian curriculum also. But friends from India are there to speak about it more. That how do you actually cleanse your history and give it a certain distorted angle, and how do you shape minds of children or young people through distorting the curriculum or making it lopsided towards a faith or a community that practices a faith or a certain kind of a mindset that is being promoted through that curriculum. So we see that happening. As far as the social rights are concerned, education is a major area, and that is where the government is is trying to impose a single national curriculum. The government has just recently through an ordinance changed the composition and the hierarchy of the Higher Education Commission. So I mean, so there are these things happening on the side, and it is all are functions of the populist politics that Mr. Imran Khan represents, right-wing, bigoted populist politics. Then, when it comes to economic freedoms and economic rights, Pakistan has seen the worst inflation, the worst unemployment, and the worst sort of underemployment in 30 years of its history. I can safely say that. If you look at the numbers, even the central bank, the State Bank of Pakistan actually confirms that in year 2020, the inflation was above 20%. And that is basic commodities, and that is access to basic food and services. So we see that happening as well. So it's a very interesting situation here, where you see a quasi-authoritarian rule, which actually is trying to thrive upon a completely dysfunctional economy, which is perhaps the case only comparable to North Korea. Because in other countries where you see that there are authoritarian regimes, like in China, for instance, or like and there are so many other examples from the recent past or even from the present, you at least see that there is growth in the economy, and people are materially benefiting. If not all, there is a large number of people who are materially benefiting under that authoritarian rule. So the kind of quasi-authoritarian rule that we experience, we see that people are neither materially benefiting, nor they are getting an opportunity to actually criticize that what is happening with them. So this is something really unique in my humble view. Finally, I mean, I know that I've spoken for quite long, and there are so many other more better informed and people with more insight on the panel, and they will add to what I've said or correct me wherever I was wrong. Finally, I think the key to success to realize human rights in the region, as I said, it is all interlinked. Between the interstatal conflicts, there is an impact. The key is trying to bring peace to South Asia, civil society and individuals like us, who otherwise seem powerless and helpless, but perhaps with increasing the people-to-people interaction between Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Maldives, Nepal, Afghanistan, Bhutan, I think it is important that this people-to-people contact is revised and strengthened, and we rise above our national sentiments and try to see ourselves as South Asian citizens as well, because the issues of poverty, destitution, inequality, because of this blatant neoliberal economic model that is being pursued across the region, there are issues where we have to come together and put up a fight. Thank you very much, Munir Saab. I'm available for the rest of the seminar if there are any questions. Thank you very much. Thank you very much all for listening.
Thank you very much, Haris Khalik, for your wonderful deliberation. And now we are also joined by Justice retired Ali Nawaz Chauhan Sahab, who is also one of our keynote speakers. And he has been Chairman, National Commission on Human Rights, that is abundant for last 2.5 years almost, I think, about 3 years, as Haris Khalik has mentioned about it, that is under the parliament and statutory body, but unfortunately, in the absence of National Commission on Human Rights, we can see the priority of the government in Pakistan. And Justice Chauhan has also been with International Court, and he knows very much about the region and the international human rights laws and other basics of such kind of objectives that could help nations develop their people to such level where they can contribute to peace in the region. Justice Ali Nawaz Chauhan Sahab, please unmute and Ali Nawaz Chauhan Sahab, can you hear me? Ali Nawaz Chauhan Sahab, your mic is not connected. Please see on your device, there would be a headphone. Please click it and you will be connected to us. Ali Nawaz Chauhan Sahab? I don't know, like, okay, I will guide him afterwards. And we also, our other two speakers, Dr. Yahya Jahangiri from Iran has also joined us, and MD Tanbirul Islam from Dhaka has also joined us. Now I would request our another speaker, Dr. Yahya Jahangiri, please go ahead. Dr. Yahya Jahangiri Sahab, can you hear me? Yeah, Dr. Yahya Jahangiri, wa alaikum assalam. And thank you so much for joining, Dr. Jahangiri. And
pleasure is mine.
And you know the topic, and basically we are interested to know the situation of human rights within the country and how your interaction with other countries would improve peace in the region. Please go ahead, Dr. Jahangiri.
Sure. Just may I ask you to first one of the scholars to hear from him, then I'll join. There is a technical problem in my phone. Let's solve it, then I'll join. After the speaker, one of the speakers, I'll deliver my lecture.
Fine.
Thank you.
Ali Nawaz Chauhan
Sahab,
Sahab,
technical problem.
Okay, I think there is also technical problem with Ali Nawaz Chauhan Sahab. Ali Nawaz Chauhan Sahab, can you hear me? Okay, I proceed to Mr. Vidur Subedi, Secretary General, Human Rights Alliance, Kathmandu, Nepal. Mr. Vidur Subedi, do you hear me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Please go ahead. And you know the topic and the components of your deliberations that we are interested to have from you. Mr. Subedi.
Okay, thank you very much, Munir sir. I am from Nepal, National Alliance for Human Rights and Social Justice. This is an wider network of NGOs who works for human rights and social justice in Nepal. I am agreed with Haris Khalik sir, who already delivered his speech. In the context of Nepal, I think we are in the very baby federalism we are practicing here. But the context of the human rights violation is mainly focused, or main events of the context is women rights violations, child rights violations, caste discrimination, social touchability and untouchability, child rights issues are emerging issues of the countries. The political system is stable, but sometimes the parliament was demolished 2 months ago, but Supreme Court just restored the parliament, and the government is going on well. In the Nepalese context, I want to share you just within the 30 years, there were completely autocratic system to federal republican system. We passed 3 decades in the 3 types of terms. First up, there were people's movement. The second term, there were armed conflict where more than 17,000 people killed, too many people displaced. And after that, the Constitution Assembly build a constitution. In this phase, we human rights activists play a role as a civil society organization. And in Nepal, there were 3 words as a chanting. I briefly said one is a dialogue to ensuring human rights. International human rights instruments are as a uh, as our tools of advocacy to restore the sustainable peace. The first one is dialogue, intensive dialogue, and civil society organization create a platform to bring the government, to bring the rebel people for the dialogue. And reconciliation or consensus is another chanting, and they work together. Now, the rebel people also a leading role in the government, joint government. They are here, and now there is no any armed force in the Nepal. Some 10 years ago, there were 34 armed troops who were working against the government. Some of them are for isolation, and some of them were as a revolutionary parties. But this dialogue, government formed the dialogue. Yes, sorry. Government formed the dialogue group, and they negotiate each other, and the latest Maoist group also came into the peace process and peaceful politics. Currently, that is one kind of achievement. So I'm going to conclude my experience from Nepal is this dialogue process can bring the revolutionary teams, extremists to the peaceful process through the dialogue, and we have sustainable peace practices in Nepal. But in this context, civil society and National Human Rights Commission, somehow with the government, we have a collaborative approach to restore the peace for the development against the violations.
रिस्टोर क्या होता है बे? अगर नहीं आती इंग्लिश तो उर्दू में बोल लो।
ये उर्दू तो नहीं आती है, हिंदी सपोर्ट अभी हिंदी आया भाई। I think restore, I mean restoration means we had a crisis previous some years ago, and they left the weapon and they come into the peace process. I just concluding my voice. Thank you now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Subedi, for your wonderful deliberation. Now, I would request, like, if Dr. Jahangiri, if you are ready for your presentation.
Yes, I am ready.
Oh, okay. Please go ahead.
You have my video and my voice.
Yes, I have your video and your. Yes, I can also hear you. Please go ahead.
First of all, I thank and appreciate. I thank you and appreciate your your activity for holding such a great webinar. And today I learned from these scholars from some subcontinent countries, from Nepal, Pakistan, and India, Bangladesh, and also Iran. I hope to have one of the scholars from Afghanistan, but I didn't know there was or no, but I didn't see in the poster of the conference. So, by the way, I am Yahya Jahangiri, talking from Iran. I am the member of sorry, it is the Azan time in Iran. I am the member of the editorial board for the Islamic Peace Studies Journal in Iran. Until now, we have published 4 issues of this journal. And
भोसड़ी के मादर चोद।
you hear me? You hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And
I'm
also,
sorry for the disturbance. Please go ahead.
No problem. And also the member of the community for Call for Peace in Iran, and also the member of the Islamic Peace Discourse in Sweden. First of all, let me talk a bit about our activities regarding to the peace and soul in this communities. The Call for Peace community tried during these years to establish the peace in Iran, particularly in a practical aspect. Sorry. So practical peace in Iran, supporting those who affected by flood and earthquake and many other events in Iran, and also try to distribute the peace among the disabled and so on. And one of the very important aspects of this community is to distribute the peace studies from theoretical aspect. From theoretical aspect, it want to distribute the peace studies. That's why we established the academic association and also the journal. As you know, the Iran is Islamic country, so to study peace from Islamic perspective is a very important issue. By the way, this is regarding to the activity of the peace in our community and association. Peace studies and peace activities in Iran has been widened since 2000. But before that, we had the Peace Studies Organization. But by the 2000, we see many associations, and also the courses studying on peace has been widened in academic field, and also we have many NGOs in Iran concerns the peace activities. One of them is the dialogue, particularly intra-Islamic and inter-Islamic dialogue. We have many organizations in Iran, and I, as one of the peace activists, I've joined last year in the peace talk in India, invited by the His Eminence the head of the Buddhist Tibet, just right now I forgot his name, Dalai Lama, and the conference was diversity in religion for peace. Also, we established many peace talks with the Mennonites in Canada for the peace buildings, as well as establishing negotiation in religious field and non-religious field with the inter-Islamic sect in Iran and non-Iran. For example, we established a talk and a course with the Ibadis sect, which they are active in Oman and north of Africa. So one of the methods to establish the peace is dialogue, to understand the others problem, particularly regarding in the realm of religions, is the religion's violence. Religious violence is the negligence and not being familiar with the other religions and other sects and other beliefs. So when we establish negotiation and dialogue and being familiar with other sects and other beliefs, it establishes peace. And I think we have to be more active in this field. Second issue, which is very important, is that I, as a peace activist, participated in many peace activities and forums and gatherings in Lebanon, Iraq, held by the Geneva Call for Peace. So one of our activities regarding to the talks, making dialogue between the minorities, religious minorities, ethnic minorities, and so on. And the third is the practical activity. And the second is practical activity, for example, supporting the disabled and giving advices and counsels for the and advices for the families they suffered during the COVID, and it was very useful. By the way, one of the very important realm of our activity regarding to the peace building is a theoretical aspect. For example, recently one of my paper in the academic peer review journal was published, and it was the view of the Shia to the comment of the last saver from eschatological view, how we can make a peace. In my paper, I said that from Shiite perspective, the end of the world, instead of being full of violence, would be full of peace. And the savior he will come, he concerns to the peace. So based on the Shiite teachings, that peace won't be occurred by sudden, but we have to prepare the ground for this peace. So based on this, all human beings should work to the peace in a way that to prepare the ground for the arrival of the era which would be full of peace. Thank you for the opportunity, and I do thank again for holding this conference, this webinar. Let me say wassalamu alaikum, and I do thank again for the scholars and Como Develop for holding this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yahya Jahangiri, for your presentation. And I'm really very sad to note that some people are trying to disturb this webinar, because like whenever we talk about people-to-people contact, when we talk about such kind of a peace initiative, there are always disruptions from different corners, even within the community, and I don't know like who they are. And I'm so sorry, Mr. Subedi, you were also disturbed, and Dr. Yahi Jahangiri, you were also like, your speech was also being disturbed, but I tried to control it. And this moment, two people are just watching who is entering and who is not. And meanwhile, Lieutenant General retired Talat Masood Saab
So by
is,
the way, Professor,
has, sir, yes, Dr. Jahangiri, please.
yeah, Professor, when we are talking on peace, we have to be patient.
Yeah, we have to. We have to, but we also have to be vigilant, like who is disturbing peace, and we have to remove them. And now we have two people watching it. Okay, thank you, Dr. Jahangiri. And I welcome Lieutenant General retired Talat Masood Saab, who is also geopolitical analyst and a wonderful speaker and peace promoter across the world. Thank you, General Saab, for joining. And now I would request Anshul Oja. Anshul Oja is a wonderful development expert. Basically, he started off as an environmentalist and environmental journalist. And lately he founded Desert Resource Group. Anshul Oja, please,
Yes.
you are there. Thank you so much. Please go ahead and tell us a little bit about the situation of human rights in India, and the efforts of the civil society and the government institutions to promote human rights in the region. And if you like, you can also talk about the conflicts that we are facing and what could be the way forward about it. Anshul Oja, please go ahead.
Right. Thank you, Munir Sahab, and thank you again for inviting me, having me here. It's such a esteemed panel, and I'm sure there would be, a lot to be learned and synthesized, derived out of this discussion. I also congratulate you for initiating this. Over the last few years, there is a definitive reduction in these kind of track 2, track 3 dialogues, in the region, and perhaps there are some certain answers in these kind of dialogues which we must promote. Khalik Saab mentioned and talked, reflected a lot on, the aspects, developments in, on this part of the South Asia, and of course, I would largely agree to what he's saying. A lot could be talked about the current dispensation, but of course we do understand that is the true nature of world over, and that is something the history has also told us very clearly. Is this the true nature of the fascism in to a certain degree? We are definitely greatly concerned about what is happening in Northeast, in the Armed Forces Special Protection Act, and how it has over the decades marginalized the communities in the northeast of the India, the communities which are largely indigenous communities, who have special protection and rights, under the international human rights framework. Yet, how this, AFSPA provides almost literally endless power to the military. Equally concerning is the recent declaration of one of the state to block the influx of Burmese refugees, which is a great concern and a huge issue, which is again a series, part of the series of all these things which are happening. We are also gravely concerned about the skepticism of judiciary and specifically what's happening around a lot of things here. the very nature, the texture of the society is um, uh, is challenged, and there is a definitive fragmentation happening. And one of the live examples of this exploitation, marginalization, and apathy of the state was, what we did with our most marginalized citizens during the lockdown. Literally, millions were on the road, barely getting food and walking hundreds and thousands of kilometers to their homes. Because overnight we decided to, shut the entire country. However, I would like to, make a point. Khalik Saab mentioned that there is a pro-Pakistan sentiment in in the Kashmir. Would like to, differ there, and would really like to differ, not to politicize the discussion, but really attempting to bring the focus back on the communities, the people of Kashmir, and like Kashmir, thousands others in the conflict areas. Yes, it is a conflict area. Yes, there are aspects to it, but using that as an opportunity to, put a stamp to something would be an overstatement. This wonderful gatherings group must focus on the aspects of peace for the marginalized communities, peace for the conflict areas, and in the larger global conflict and the climate change, paradigms, going beyond the political context, how the conflict areas and environment-induced, climate-induced conflicts are going to shoot up. Where are we in those? So specifically, with this sort of primer, specifically, I wanted to underline on environment and climate change induced conflicts and how that is going to affect, the peace in the region. I wanted to focus on two key aspects. The first is water. We all know where we are in terms of the regional water availability, the pace at which we are losing the glacial lakes, the overall availability is going to be gravely affecting the most marginalized communities, be it a Pakistani citizen or be it, Indian citizens along Indo-Gangetic plains, so on and so forth. My friend from Nepal would agree to the impact, the glacial lakes are going to have, in those areas. So I would really urge this gathering to, look at the beyond political spaces implications of the climate change, global warming, and how that is going to affect our stability. When I refer to our, I really mean the regional South Asian stability and the peace. The second area of great concern is the pastoralism, the people who have been for generations, for centuries, nomads, walking around the pasture lands in India, and especially in the in the western part. I come from state Rajasthan, which has half of the Thar Desert. The rest of the desert is in Sindh Bahawalpur area. So Rajasthan has the highest number of common property resources, or what we call pasture lands, and for centuries those have been preserved and managed by communities, and there are ecosystem services which these pastoralists, when they walk from drier areas to greener pastures, the input environment ecosystem services which they provide to these lands and rejuvenate these, while also using, so literally it's a very symbiotic sort of relationship. Pastoralism is, so in the universal human rights framework, the pastoral groups, they are considered the most vulnerable human groups across the world. and we also know there is a global history of exploitation. If you refer to the history, World War II, the Roma tribes and the other pastoral tribes were the first which were hit, and we know exactly how this all shaped up. So what are we doing around those areas? In India, there are some provisions in Forest Rights Act, which now talks about support and entitlements to pastoralists, including the forest entitlement, the land entitlement. So it would be interesting to understand and learn what all is happening in this space in Pakistan, in Nepal, where are we in China around pastoral rights. These are the lifelines, and this is one of the most sort of resilient communities, in South Asia, expanding up to the Hungarian grasslands. And if there are no coordinated efforts around supporting the pastoralists, one specific group which is highly vulnerable, there would be implications not just on the citizenry, but also the lands, the dry arid areas, which literally spans in millions of hectares of spread across the western, even the mountains. Another one specific point or recommendation which I would leave with this group is, because we do a lot of work around deserts. The Desert Resource Center is aimed at working on partnerships, technologies, knowledge, and connecting various deserts of the world. We currently, are working in Thar Desert and Ladakh, in mountain deserts, and are planning to expand our work in African deserts. How we could, towards promoting the regional peace and the people dialogue, we could talk about, just on the lines of mountain partnerships by FAO, how we could promote the desert partnership. So this is one thought I would like to leave, and I would, I would pause here, open for discussions hereafter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anshul Oja, giving a different aspect to human rights that are related to environment and water and climate, and definitely the new challenge will be posing another kind of threats to the basic rights to the people. And thank you very much for putting up a desert partnership. As we have a global mountain partnership supported by Swiss and Italian governments and FAO, and it's a wonderful partnership that has been since 2002, and about 18-19 years now. And definitely we can work out about this initiative as well. And I launched DesertCon 3 years back. So that was basically after several years, about 18 or 19 years of highlighting mountain issues. And I started putting up desert conservation initiatives in Pakistan, and hopefully it would taken up by the authorities as integrated development plans. Thank you, Anshul. Wonderful. And now I would be going to our one of the keynote speakers, Justice Ali Nawaz Chauhan Sahab, former chairperson, National Commission on Human Rights. Unfortunately, he has no assistance for his to connect his to connect his device to the webinar. So I have requested him to speak on phone, and the phone through phone, he would be addressing us. Thank you, Ali Nawaz Chauhan Sahab. I can hear you, and the people may also be hearing you through my microphone. I believe that they will benefit as you if have been on the Zoom. The basic, and the topic, Justice Sahab, ensuring human rights for peace in the region, and the different aspects of human rights and how they could be managed. And you have seen the situation of human rights in the region over the decades. Please go ahead, Justice Chauhan.
Basically, when the Constituent Assembly came into being, the guy himself chose to be its president. And from 1919, he's been speaking about human rights, became a member of the trade union as well. So this was his belief. And of course, the Islamic card was always used for getting Pakistan, but it meant really amelioration of the suffering of the people who were suffering in the subcontinent. And that was Azam's greatest concern. Even Iqbal, when he was writing letters to the Quaid-e-Azam, was mentioning about the poverty and the problems in that respect of human rights of the Muslims of India. So if you read those letters, you'd find out more about it. Until then, 1940, another periphery was given, and so on and so forth. But later, this factor was not given much importance because for various reasons, the failure of democracy and so on and so forth, the way people were treated during one period when I saw people being flogged at the what is Bhutto Hospital today on Murray Road. I've seen it myself. And people being beaten and so on and so forth because they were asking for their rights. Well, to cut the whole story short, then there was the European Union pressurizing, and in 2012, then the government of Pakistan People's Party then brought in this Act 16, creating the Human Rights National Institute of Human Rights. But still, it took time until 2000, when this body was formulated from a scratch. The bureaucracy saw to it that there were no rules, and there were all impediments in the implementation of that law, which is a usual phenomena here. We celebrate the fact that an act is passed without knowing it can't be implemented without rules, and that's where bureaucracy plays its tricks. It did so here too. And we had problems of recruitment, budget, this, that, and we were involved for a considerable time into this. But of course, we had the zeal, the fervor, the urge, and the passion. And because of that, we were able to establish a dynamic body, the National Commission for Human Rights, which was surprised to many. 35 reports, investigational reports were published by us, which dealt with everything. Nowadays, my report on Hazara is being discussed nationally and internationally. And take other reports as well, whether it relates to torture, whether it relates to the Kalash people, and whether it relates to minorities, police reforms. The other day I presented my book on police reforms to the Islamabad police, and so on. We worked hard and created an ambience where we promoted and protected human rights with hundreds of cases coming in, whether it was honor killing, minority conversions, disappearances, this, that, and the other. But then when our tenure came to an end in 2018, this should have been anticipated by the Ministry of Human Rights to have brought in another commission, or, as the law provided, allowed the present existing commission to continue until a new one was created. But the interest was not there. The interest was, well, how to stop an independent commission, because this doesn't fit in the psyche of people against whom human rights violations are reported by the general public. So then the bureaucracy there, and especially the secretary, the last secretary of the commission, the lady, she saw to it that this is further delayed. She inserted the stipulation of age, which was against the law. It took time, then it was struck down. Then again, she put in an advertisement, and that was not held to be legal. Then now another one was put in, and names were invited, and they are there. But there is again a declaration by the Islamabad High Court. Well, this should be done in a way prescribed by Section 4 of the NCHR. So it means further delay. But while this is being done and nobody is questioning the Ministry of Human Rights, why are you committing these errors to create delays? You know how much we have done for you. The commission, the previous commission, we got you the GSP Plus, we got you a human rights situation corrected, minorities were happy, and so on and so forth. But I don't think they are reporting their failures, their indolence to the Prime Minister, who has always spoken of human rights. And you see, they are unnecessarily getting into things like changing Section 500A and so on and so forth, without bringing in what we call as the National Commission, the revived National Commission for Human Rights, which can do a tremendous job. In case of Kashmir, for instance, the National Commission could have alerted the whole world, 160 national institutions of human rights about the violations. Now, that would have had an impact, but nobody is realizing this. And nobody is also realizing the suffering, the torture which go on in our midst, in our society. And there are problems with water. Now we have the COVID, the shortage of vaccine, and what else? I mean, we could see the suffering rampant. But these are at stages where a commission, an independent commission, can intervene and bring to the notice of the government environmental issues, this, that, and the other. A ministry has no place in this sort of a setup which is based on various principles. This has been created more as an impediment, because we see from the conduct that they are not facilitating the creation of another commission. A commission would always be friendly to the ministry, provided it allows the commission to work independently. Now, they are also not allowing the functioning of the National Commission for the Status of Women, because no German is being appointed. And they have not yet brandished any rules about NCHR, which is there, the budget of NCHR, where it is going, and what is happening in the erstwhile office of the NCHR. So all this situation is very unfortunate. And as with altruism and respect, I would say that all this is possibly with a design. And I think EU and other organizations will then press hard that where is your National Commission for you? By this time, they would have become member of the Gallery, which is a global organization, and worked hard for human rights and shown example. We could have spoken even about Norway. We could have spoken about what is happening elsewhere. But you see, a government can't speak on those issues because it should be a body independent of the administration, and the government should do it. And that also reduces the number of cases and litigation, because people have petty rights against, they have petty matters which is defending their human rights. So, if you see some of my interviews with the British BBC, the Guardian, and the rest, if you want to send me the copies, I have spoken about it. Now, the last thing is the vested interest, which I was pointing out. The last secretary, Mrs. Aga, put her own name for the presidentship while she was the secretary of the Ministry of Human Rights. She's put her name number 1 after changing the Director General act as she wanted, and the names were sent with her name at the top, and she's signing the summary. Well, these sort of things do not happen in a civilized country, and by civil servants who have been well groomed and brought about, except if they have their vested interests and they want these bodies not to be created.
Okay.
So citizens of Pakistan are looking in Ashkins and looking to the Prime Minister to see that this body is created, and it's not left to the Ministry of Human Rights alone, but it should be a policy of the government that this should be created. Only then we'll be able to protect and promote human rights. And I think the human rights are suffering here because there's no proper body. Without the commission, the cases before the commission, which are just lying in bundles here and there because the ministry can't do it, it doesn't have a mandate. It has tried to create changes in the business rules by themselves without following the procedure. It has tried to get, even they've got funds, which actually should have come to the National Commission for Human Rights for creating another body parallel. I opposed it, and it was dropped later by two sensible ministers who had come, the interim government, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
So the agony is that this body, which was doing a wonderful job and had to be reviewed and new one created to continue with that job. You see, a gap has been created, and I don't know what is the future for all this. People are looking at a very bleak picture, and there is no hope left. So I would urge the Prime Minister to kindly intervene and reinstate the body. At least the old body be reinstated until the new one is created.
Justice Chauhan, may I interrupt you, please, because we are short of time as well, and I have to ask a question. You are definitely be able to answer it. This is the situation in Pakistan that you talked about. The framework of human rights and the commission and other things are definitely such kind of glitches are there. But I'm also interested to know the conflicts in the region. There are several burning conflicts in the region. What are the main one you cite, and how they could be resolved within the countries and in the region for a peaceful future?
Yes. I'll give you the answer. You see, I'm also the chairman of the voices, passive voices of Kashmir, and this is a legal framework, and we are finding a legal answer. Now, what is happening in Kashmir in an international conflict at a flashpoint between the nuclear states is a horrible situation where people are suffering. We also see our Muslim brethren in our other friendly countries suffering. We are seeing human rights violation in India besides Indian occupied Kashmir. As far as the Muslims are concerned, the way they are being treated, the way Citizenship Act has been brought about with changes. Section 370, which gave a special status to Kashmir, has been taken away as if it was a local domestic constitutional provision, whereas it was not. It involved international agreement and commitments. We have the resolutions, if you talk of resolution 38, 39 of 1948, the commitments of plebiscite and so on. 370 gave a special status. And that was not something local because the legislature agreed. That was a commitment. And even 35A was a commitment because 35A rather reinstated what was said somewhere in 1937 by the Maharaja about people who can have a domicile and residence in Kashmir, and that was given the constitutional decision, which has also been taken away. Sorry, the purpose was to change the demography, and when plebiscite takes place, of course, the population of the valley is then not as much as it should be for deciding the issue. National Commission for Human Rights would have done a lot of work on this. It has been deprived of doing it, but the conflict is there. If the fighting on the LOC has stopped, but the conflict hasn't stopped, and we have to reassure, and continue reassuring our brothers in Kashmir that we are occupied Kashmir, that we are with you, and we are taking these violations, the genocide issues, the war crimes, etc. We are discussing these internationally, but you see, it's not government's job. It would have been better if there was a national commission. But anyway, we have created a body who is going to raise these issues as an NGO. So this conflict, international conflict, can flare up into anything. What has happened now is just a temporary relief because both sides thought they were wasting funds and so on and so forth. But this has also given rise to perceptions which are negative, and those ought to be removed always by our actions and conduct, which should satisfy our brethren that no, not given up the issue, we are with it, we will not allow it. And I must thank the National Assembly and even some government senior ministers who said, look, we will not allow the trade until the matter is resolved. So matter is simmering. It can go in hibernation, but it has to be resolved, and it should be raised as a human rights issue, and I think that we should continue raising it. But this is a big issue, and we can't, it cannot die. It will keep on simmering, and the conflict will always be there, and it can be a flashpoint between nuclear state, which is a big danger.
Okay, thank you very much, Justice Chauhan, for your a very detailed deliberation on the issues. Thank you so much. I'll get back to you again. Thank you very much. Now, I would like to have if Mr. Tanveerul Islam from Bangladesh is there. Tanveerul Islam from Bangladesh. Sorry, we stopped almost like more than 70 people to enter into this because of there were some like different names, or we were like very scared of having such kind of interruptions that we already had. And I'm sorry, maybe like they were our friends, not foes, but they were stopped to enter into the webinar. Now, we don't have a representative from Bangladesh. I would request our Guru, Faratullah Babar Sahab, if before coming to you, because I don't see General Talat Masood Sahab connected in, because he was already connected. Earlier he was connected, but now his audio is not connected, and until he got connected with us. Faratullah Babar Sahab, you are Guru on, but please unmute yourself, and you have a long history of democratization of Pakistan, human rights, and so on. And you know the situation of the South Asia. You know the countries, what they are within. and you have seen the democratic governments, quote unquote, and the undemocratic governments as well. How you see the rights of the people are ensured in the given circumstances that we are going through, and what could be the roadmap for future? Please go ahead, Fardul Abbas.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me, Munir sir?
Yes, wonderfully.
Yeah, thank you very much. I would like to compliment you for also inviting me to speak in this distinguished forum. I should also like to welcome all the eminent panelists over here, although I was not required to speak initially, but I would like to share with the panelists my thoughts and perceptions on peace and human rights in South Asia. I should like to take the conversation forward from where Haris Khaliq had left, and he said that the key is to bring peace to South Asia. When we are talking of human rights in South Asia and peace, now peace in itself is supreme and ultimate human rights, because the antithesis of peace is war, and war destroys human beings and it destroys human rights also. Therefore, when we are talking of the human rights in South Asia, we have to focus on peace in South Asia. And how to go about this peace in South Asia? Well, there are many issues bedeviling country South Asia and peace in South Asia. So I would like to confine myself to a broad overview, how to improve the conditions for peace in South Asia so as to ensure strengthening of the human rights in South Asia. I think that the first requirement for peace in South Asia should be democracy in South Asia. Democracy in all the countries of South Asia for two reasons. Number one, democracy within each country means people can raise their voice. Democracy within each country means rule of law. Democracy within each country means a stronger democratic institutions like the parliament and the courts, which are the protectors of human rights and which are the protector of the rule of law. Therefore, I think that for democracy in each country of South Asia, each country needs to have a strong democracy and stronger democratic institutions in each country. The second reason why democracy is important for peace in the region is that, historically speaking, democracies are less likely to go to war and disturb peace than dictatorships. Not that democracies don't go to war, they also go to war, but democratic governments have a mechanism for addressing disputes. A dispute resolution mechanisms are more pronounced and clear in democracies rather than in dictatorships. Therefore, my first submission is that the foremost requirement for promoting peace and human rights in South Asian countries is to work for promoting democracy in these countries. I cannot speak for the state of democracy in each of these countries. This is for the distinguished panelists from those countries. This is, hello?
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
I don't know what happened.
आपकी वीडियो जो है, आपकी आवाज आ रही है फरतुल्लाह बाबर साहब, लेकिन आपकी वीडियो
वीडियो गायब। हाँ, मुझे आप नजर नहीं आ रहे, तो इसलिए मैंने कहा कि शायद आवाज भी नहीं आ रही होगी।
नहीं,
but if you can hear me clearly, then that is good enough.
मैंने दोबारा I ask you to start video. आप जरा दोबारा अपनी वीडियो स्टार्ट करके देखें।
I don't know, just hold on. Let me see if I can do that.
No problem, Faridullah Babar Sahab. We can hear you. You can go ahead.
Just let me see. I think we can do that. Just hold on. I think there was some.
Yes, I can see you, sir.
Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine, sir. Audio and video both are fine.
Yeah, okay. So my first point was that, we should work towards strengthening democracies in all these countries, because democracy in each country means strengthening democratic institutions, which are the protectors of human rights. And democracy also means that a democracy is less likely to go to war with other country compared with dictatorships. And when I can't speak about the status of democracy in other countries, I should not. But about Pakistan, I would like to say that why there's a need for strengthening democratic institutions in Pakistan. And the reason is that we have of late experienced a new model of democracy, and that is the hybrid form of democracy, in which, the real control is not with the civil political, the real control is with the security establishment. And this kind of model, in which on the steering wheel of governance, somebody appears to be sitting, but he does not have control of the vital levers of the vehicle. Now, such a vehicle in which you seem to be sitting on the driving wheel, but the vital controls are controlled by somebody else, while you are accountable sitting on the wheel, but the people who are controlling the vital levers are unaccountable. Such a vehicle is fated to meet a disastrous accident. That means it is a great threat to democracy. And as far as my perception and understanding of democracy in my own country, Pakistan, is concerned. The second threat to democracy in Pakistan is institutional, I'm talking of, not the individual things. The institutional things which stand in the way of promoting human rights are that the parliamentary and statutory institutions set up to defend and promote human rights of citizens, namely the National Commission on Human Rights or the National Commission on the Status of Women, they are lying moribund. They are not in service. They are not in use for the last almost 2 years. Now, these were the parliamentary institutions, statutory bodies to strengthen and promote and defend human rights in Pakistan. They are unfortunately not functional. And the third important institution, that was the National Commission on the Rights of Child, although it exists on the paper, but practically it is dormant because it has not been given the support that it needed. So in Pakistan, I would say that these three areas are institutional bottlenecks towards promoting human rights within the country. And the third danger and the third impediment in the way of the human rights in Pakistan is gagging of the freedom of expression, overtly and covertly. And it has gone to such an extent that even the Supreme Court of Pakistan had to comment on this as to how by invisible means the freedom of expression is being curtailed, and that verdict of the Supreme Court of Pakistan has still not been implemented, which required the government to carry out certain investigations into certain incidents of gagging of the media. So these are the three major areas which, in my view, impede progress on human rights in Pakistan. When we talk about the human right, the peace in the region and the human rights, and as I submitted earlier, that peace and human rights are interlinked, because the absence of peace means war, and war destroys human beings and human rights also. So when we talk of peace within the region, what are the issues which bedevil the peace in the region? One, of course, was, I said, democracy needs to be strengthened. But the issues which really bedevil peace in the region are, number one, is militancy. Each country, this is an issue which is not confined to one country alone, to Pakistan or to India or to Bangladesh. It is an issue which concerns all countries in the region. So I think that some mechanism, it can take ages to discuss what are the causes of militancy and how to address it, what are the different perspectives. But militancy and terrorism is one fundamental issue which is affecting adversely the prospects of peace in the country. And in terms of this militancy and terrorism, and I think that the relations between India and Pakistan and the situation in Pakistan, in Afghanistan, it occupies the center stage when we talk of militancy and terrorism. So that is one thing. And of course, poverty, which also is linked to human rights, is another common area of which can create, which can endanger human rights in the entire region. But I would like to focus on another area which holds the potential of threatening peace in the region, but which has not been given the importance that it deserves. It is not on the radar of the political parties. It is not on the radar of the security establishments of these countries. It is not even on the radar of the civil society. But I'm glad that one of the distinguished panelists mentioned it a short while ago. I don't remember his name. And he mentioned about climate and environment. And I think that all countries of South Asia are bedeviled by degradation of environment, by the scarcity of water, by the temperatures rising, and by the changes in the climate they are taking place. Now, how is it related to? It is related to, now it is widely recognized that it is the impact of climate change, the impact of global warming and water scarcity. Now it is widely recognized that it has a great bearing on the human rights. And that is why it has been included in the United Nations SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, because when there is scarcity of water, when there are floods and the climate and this climate change, then the result is it is hunger multiplier, it is ill health multiplier, and it is poverty multiplier, and therefore it is a great issue, gives rise to a great issue of human rights. And since it is common to all these countries in the region, whether it is Sri Lanka, or whether it is India, whether it is Bangladesh, whether it is Pakistan, so I think that a potential threat to peace and thereby a threat to the human rights in the region is climate change. And this is an area which can be addressed and which should be addressed because it does not require kinetic action of the sort of military action. It requires a peaceful action. And number two, it is in the interest of all these countries. It is not that it is in the interest of India alone and not in my interest, or that it is in the interest of Bangladesh alone and it is not in the interest of India. So here is an issue in which the interest of all these countries of South Asia converge. Here is an issue which is a real human rights destabilizer. And it is an issue which does not require military kinetic action. Can you hear me?
Yes, well, I can hear you. There was some disturbance. I don't know.
Well, I think Monisha, there was a disturbance before also. Let me caution you, whenever you will talk of peace, there will be disruptors also.
Of
Therefore,
course.
you should
Great.
not be deterred.
Ah.
And we know that the peace processes, how they have been disrupted.
Yeah.
I mean, it might sound a distraction, but let me elaborate how the peace processes in the region have been distracted. When Prime Minister Vajpayee visited Pakistan, he was responded with Kargil, and the peace process was disrupted.
Yeah.
When Asif Ali Zardari in 2008, on 22nd November 2008, offered to India talks on no first use of nuclear weapons, 4 days later, Mumbai happened.
Yeah.
And on the 25th of December 2014, when Prime Minister Modi visited Rai-Wind, on the 1st of January, Pathankot happened. Therefore, you should not be deterred if there are distractions whenever you talk of peace, because history tells us that whenever practical measures were taken for peace in the region, there were some elements who subverted and who sabotaged. Therefore, keeping in mind this past experience, we should not be deterred. Coming back to the climate, environment, water scarcity, I tell you, I'm glad that somebody also pointed out earlier, because all these countries where this problem is acute, where it's acute when the countries have large coastal areas, and you can see how many countries in the region have large coastal areas. Climate affects where there are large populations. Countries in the region also have large populations. And where there are tropical seasons, and this region also has tropical seasons. And the monsoon now, the timing, the period of the monsoon also has changed. So we have, floods and we have droughts. So I think that this is an area in which countries of the region can cooperate. If nothing else, they can exchange information among the countries. And once you start exchanging the information, all the countries will become alert and interested. And that should be the first peaceful step that the countries in the region can take to exchange information on the melting of the glaciers, on the monitoring of the glaciers, and so on and so forth. So I think that the prospects for improving human rights in the region lies in strengthening democracy, democratic institutions in all these countries. And if we cannot address other contentious issues overnight, one can talk about the issues between the countries of this region, but a beginning can be made by addressing issues in environment, water scarcity, and climate to proceed further. So thank you very much, Mudir Sahab, for giving me this opportunity. And I really enjoyed the conversation of distinguished panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Faratullah Babar Sahab. It's always our learning when you speak, and you give us light towards the destination. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lieutenant General Retired Talat Masood Sahab. You have joined us. And Faratullah Babar Sahab has raised three key points for the region. One is militancy and terrorism. Second is India-Pakistan relationship. And the third, situation in Afghanistan, the major conflicts in the region, and he pointed out the lack of coordination and framework, transboundary framework on climate change. If I were your concern, your point of view, I think we don't have a transboundary framework on climate change, including water and floods and droughts to address. And even we are not willing to share information. But General Sahab, I think you can take up 3 points: militancy and terrorism, Pakistan-India relationships, and Afghanistan peace. The major 3. General Sahab, please go ahead.
And sorry, one is militancy, second
Pakistan-India relations, and peace in Afghanistan.
Right. Let me start off with militancy. I think you have to understand the militancy. I think militancy has some historic roots as well, because Pakistan has been involved last 2 decades as far as Afghanistan is concerned. It has played a major role in terms of supporting America's inviting the military in Afghanistan, then the militants then seeped into Pakistan, and Pakistan has suffered since then. And the whole development of Taliban in Afghanistan and development of Taliban within Pakistan also has a lot to do with militancy. And also the question of Kashmir.
Sorry, I think we lost connection with General Saab. General Saab is there. Please go ahead. General Saab, unmute your mic. General Saab, unmute your mic.
That rising, although not really in that sense, but there was a spillover of that in Pakistan. Pakistan was located in a place which is
General Tala Saab,
very first of
excuse me, General
that resulted in bringing a conflict with in which till today Pakistan has strong shadows, as far as in Pakistan relations are concerned. And also
General Tala Saab, can you hear me? Hello.
The situation in Afghanistan has been very unstable, continue to be unstable. The future is also, you cannot really predict, unpredictable, considering the very many factors that are in play. So I would say that Pakistan has to really develop a very strong inbuilt system of transforming, the society, and also trying to insulate itself from militancy. So I think it's a huge challenge. That will also require, many other aspects, including education, interacting with the rest of the world, and trying to develop, peace with India, also trying to contribute, which Pakistan is doing very sincere and genuine way, improving the security situation in Afghanistan.
I think we have a problem listening Talat Masoosa. I would request him to please exit and log in again. And in the meanwhile, I would request
Hello.
जनरल साहब आपकी आवाज बहुत डिस्टर्ब आ रही है. अगर आप एग्जिट करके वापस आए तो मेरा ख्याल है कि इट वुड इम्प्रूव योर वॉइस क्वालिटी. General Sahab, please exit and come back to the webinar. That would help, I believe. Okay. Now I would like to open this forum for question and answers. And do I see? Yeah, Faratullah Babar Sahab is there, and Haris Khaliq Sahab, are you there? Haris Khaliq Sahab, Haris Khalik Saab is not. No, Haris Khalik is also there. Haris Khalik Saab is also there. Dr. Yahya Jahangiri is there. So the participants like to ask a question. Dr. Khushbu Ejaz, please go ahead. Dr. Khushbu Ejaz, if you are there, you can ask.
Assalamualaikum ji.
Ji.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you.
Excellent talk from different countries of South Asia. I just want to comment, and then I would like to ask question from all the speakers. First of all, I think that very quickly one comment that peace in South Asia is what is required by the people of South Asia. 1/5 of the humanity is residing here, and this region is undeveloped. Mostly people are living in abject poverty, below poverty line. So peace is the one thing which we actually required. And other thing is that the human rights situation.
Dr. Khushbu Ejaz Sahiba, what is the question, please?
जी सवाल मेरा ये है कि पाकिस्तान में जो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज हमारा फ्रीडम ऑफ एक्सप्रेशन हमारे पास नहीं है in the current time frame. So what this HRCP that is currently active, what are they doing in that regard? And as you know that National Human Rights Commission is not there, and same is the case with India. In Kashmir there is not people over there have no say. So जब आपके लोगों के पास कहने की कुछ वो नहीं होगी तो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज तो आपकी यही एक्सप्रेशन नहीं है. यहाँ पे इतनी ज्यादा घुटन है साउथ एशिया में, आप और भी मुल्क निकाल के देख लें, बांग्लादेश है, कुछ भी है, तो यहाँ पे सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट मुझे जो लगता है मसला वो ये है कि हमारे पास अपने लोगों के in this global world we don't have our say.
बिल्कुल ठीक, आपकी बात पहुंच गई, इसके ऊपर बात करते हैं. तलत मसूद साहब has joined us again. Talat साहब, can you speak please?
Hear now?
Yes, I can hear you, but your voice is quite disrupted this time.
Can you hear me? Is it better?
It's a bit better, I think. आप जरा continue करें ना.
I'll continue, of course. The most important, I was, I think, cut off somewhere when I was talking about militancy, and then I think the next important point for improving the human rights situation and also the general situation, and also trying to cooperate in non-security areas, non-traditional security areas like climate change and water, and would require good relations, or at least functional relations with India. It is in the mutual benefit of these two countries and also in the entire countries of the region to cooperate with each other. And I think that cooperation is completely lacking, at least in the past. And I think there should be a serious effort on the part of leadership to understand the gravity of the situation, challenges, both security and non-security threat that the country is facing, need cooperation. Confrontation will only make things worse in every aspect of their lives. So I understand why this wisdom is not dawning on leadership. All the people are clamoring for it. And I know the speakers have been speaking that we need to cooperate with each other. These are fundamental challenges, and a voice is not being heard. And so I think there has to be a sort of a transformation, change in thinking and in priorities of our leadership. The priorities have to be the ones that we are discussing today. If you want to bring out better quality of people, a better quality of life for people of the region, and is of mutual benefit. So this is very important. Of course, the situation in Afghanistan is also very crucial for the improvement in the region as far as relationship in countries concerned, also reducing the level of violence. Pakistan is much worse affected if Afghanistan continues to remain unstable and volatile.
Thank you, General Saab. Now, Haris Khalik, are you there? Haris Khalik Saab, are you there? Okay. Faridullah Babar Saab, I have a question. As you have mentioned about the regional approach towards maintaining peace, and you highlighted military, militancy, terrorism, Pakistan-India relations, having no trust on each other, and then Afghanistan as the main hurdle in the peace as well. But my question is, SARC is not active for many years. And I was going through the SARC framework, and I could not find any body on human rights as well. When the SARC itself is not active, what to talk about, like having HR human rights body over there or not. So what do, like in the absence of SARC, that is the framework, and having no HR body there, how a regional approach could be adopted? Faridullah Babar Sahab.
Yeah, I think you have made a very important point that the dysfunctional SARC certainly is not helping in promoting peace and thereby promoting human rights in the region. And I agree with you that SARC must be activated. And I think that today's statement of the Foreign Office about the SARC and that, you know, we have made our position clear, I would urge the Foreign Office to reconsider this position about SARC. I think, yes, I agree with you that SARC conference must be held. That can be the most effective first step. So yes, I agree with you. It is lying moribund for a long time. And not only SARC, but along with SARC, we should also have people-to-people contacts and, if possible, trade. We had some opening when the Economic Coordination Committee of the Cabinet decided on importing sugar from India. There was a ray of hope. But then all of a sudden, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet overturned that decision. What happened between, it is inconceivable that the ECC making a decision of which the head of the ECC is the Prime Minister himself these days, because he's looking after the commerce. So it's a big puzzle as to why a very significant initiative about the trade having been taken was scuttled. As I said earlier, there are elements, the way which, you know, will always destabilize and prevent and put brakes on the processes of peace. So I think, yes, I agree with you that SARC is a very important forum. It should be reactivated, and I would urge the Foreign Office of Pakistan that the statement it has issued with regard to the holding of the SARC, I think it should review that. It will be in the interest of all countries of SARC. It will be in the interest of peace. So we need to have SARC. We need to have trade also. And if trade cannot be, you know, before 1965, there was free trade. 1965 changed everything when the trade was stopped. And it was in 1973, after the Simla Agreement, that resumption of trade started with what is called, you know, the items which could be traded between the two countries. Two important things happened in the resumption of trade. One, when a decision was taken by the cabinet that the list of the items to be traded, the negative list that these items cannot be traded, this list will be abolished by a certain date. And then I don't know what happened. When that date came, the cabinet decision was reversed, and they said the cabinet meeting on this particular item has been deferred. Something is happening somewhere. Something is happening. So I think, yes, I agree. People to people context, trade, revitalizing SARC. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Faratullah Babar Sahab. Anshul Ojha, are you there?
Yes.
Anshul, you put up climate change and water scarcity and such kind of issues that need to be engaged our governments in. But unfortunately, as I mentioned, even the SARC framework is not very active. And even that have no human rights organization or human rights body under the SARC. So when the basic framework is not functional, do you think like in the absence of a SARC framework or SARC body, there could be a possibility of transboundary framework on climate change, including water and other transboundary issues? Anshul.
I feel more than possibilities, there is a critical requirement. Having said that, it is not an easy task, a very easy job to achieve that framework. The processes required to be initiated for that kind of a comprehensive framework would be fairly complex, especially also because a very a key enabler of unrest in the days to come in the region is going to be the natural resources, which already is, and it is going to further accentuate. So in that case, how to really find that would be a big challenge. Yes, it is doable. It is very much required. And there is a definitive need of the hour to sort of, initiate, perhaps some of the policy leaders, public thinkers, come together, start talking about it at various fora. One such example, if I may take, another few seconds, is the South Asian, coalition, which is shaping up now, focusing on the International Year for Rangeland and Pastoralists, IYRP, where, year 2026 is proposed to be celebrated as the year of IRYP by the UN. Mongolian government came up with that, and there are already many nation states which have, supported that. This coalition, which is shaping up in the South Asia, is chaired by Dr. D.K. Sadana from India, and it has, public thinkers from all across the region. There is definitive need for more such platforms, and how we could, get into those processes. But a very valid point, Munir Saab, and thanks for raising that.
Mr. Subedi, are you there? Mr. Subedi.
Yes, I am here.
It's very interesting. Like Anshul said, there could be a possibility of alternate frameworks to engage nations of the region into transboundary. What is your perspective on it? Like how that transboundary framework could be translated into ensuring human rights in the region? Subedi.
Yeah, in my view, I'm fully agree with Faratullah Babar Sahab. I also have some points for the regional issues. Climate change is one, and in the context of Nepal, refugees, migration, and trafficking, human trafficking, smuggling, sometimes border issues are as well in this context of the Nepal. So I propose one agenda. If we able to hold all these issues, we may advocacy for South Asia regional human rights mechanism. From the 2010, I think one sub-regional workshop was held in Kathmandu. They raised one issues to resolve such types of multinational issues, multilateral, multi-regional issues. We need to make a South Asia regional human rights mechanism. If we make that types of human rights mechanism in the region, it can lead to resolve the issues. People to people partnership might be strong, and also raised one issues, environmental issues. Nepal completely more than 80% mountainous region, glacier, mountain issues, upland, highland issues are here. So we can come together, people to people. This is one way to make a strong lobby, and we need to make a strong SARC, people to people. People SARC also was a concept. Sometimes they have a huge connection to the people in the region. So if we able to do, Nepal also participate in this regards in these issues. Thank you, Mohamed.
Thank you, Mr. Swedi. I'm interested to talk to Lieutenant General Talat Masood Saab. If you hear me, unmute your mic, please. General Saab? General Talat Masood Saab? I don't know, General Talat Masood Saab is there.
Can I have one question?
एक मिनट जरा ठहरिए, एक मिनट सर, जरा आप चलें, पूछ लें, सवाल पूछें, आप पूछें.
Sir, my simple question is, as the region is going in economically in different fields as well, and we are going with the collaboration with the China and on a very longer term type of economical situation.
Can you hear
My
me now?
question is, sir, simple and very easier one. That is, what type of role India is going to play in for the peace and stability of this region, and how he is going to cater with the palpitating issue of the Kashmir right now. Okay. Because it's a very long, non-answer question to the whole world right now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sarwat, for your question. General Saab, you have heard the question that Sarwat Kazmi has asked. I would like to know, in the same reference, General Saab, Fazullah Babar Saab pointed out a couple of things, and we see that there are he also mentioned about people-to-people contact, and some other speakers also mentioned about people-to-people contact and role of civil society and track two or backdoor diplomacy kind of things. They were mentioned in the webinar too. That has been reduced in the recent years. My question is, India and China, they have a conflict as well, but their trade going on very smoothly. The trade is not disrupted. And the same is the case with other countries as well, where they have conflict. But unfortunately, we have a conflict with India, but the trade is disrupted. And even the people-to-people contact is disrupted. How you perceive it and how it could be improved, because like if this is improved, the other question that Sarwat Kazmi said has asked, improving a situation in Kashmir. Can you relate all these three things together to answer the question, please?
Well, I have not understood the importance of trade. We have understood the importance of people relationship. We only think in terms of hostility.
जनरल साहब आपकी आवाज जो है ना बहुत डिसरप्टेड आ रही है. मेरी आपसे गुजारिश ये है, मेरी आपसे गुजारिश
जी।
ये है कि आप एग्जिट करके जरा दोबारा वापस आइए, शायद इस तरह से ये सूरत हाल मेरे आईटी वाले बता रहे हैं कि इन्हें जनरल साहब को कहें कि एग्जिट करें और फिर वापस आएं, इससे सूरत हाल ज्यादा बेहतर हो सकती है। प्लीज ये जरा करें। मैं यही सवाल लेके फरजुल्लाह बाबर साहब आपकी तरफ आता हूँ।
अच्छा, मैं एक होल्ड ऑन फॉर अ मिनट।
जी जी
होल्ड
प्लीज।
ऑन, जरा ट्राई करता हूँ, जरा देखें इफ इज इट गेटिंग बेटर, देन लेट मी नो। जस्ट a few minutes,
हाँ हाँ
few
प्लीज,
seconds.
ओके ओके प्लीज प्लीज जनरल साहब। सॉरी हमारे यहाँ जरा जी जी प्लीज जनरल
I'm
साहब।
sorry, you know, it's not my fault, it's the fault of the systems here.
अब बेहतर है, now it's better.
Right,
sir,
right.
sir,
So
it's
I'm
better.
glad that I've gone out of the house, more or less.
Okay.
जी बताएं जी।
अब ये वही
So,
सवाल
can
जो
I-
मैंने आपसे किया था, the same question.
जी
मैंने
yeah, I got the question जी।
Okay, please
Can
go
I
ahead. Please continue.
Well, I think as far as the policies are concerned, both people in India and Pakistan who have some sense understand that what is good for the countries and for the region. But what is happening is that there are other forces which think that they have a monopoly as far as wisdom is concerned, and as far as policy is concerned, they dominate that both in India and in Pakistan. And that is why you find that they are pursuing policies which are highly detrimental to the interest of people of the region and of their countries for the last 73 years. And this is exactly the situation that needs to be changed. Now, unfortunately, we don't have leaders who have the courage. Firstly, they don't have a grip on their country as far as policies which are good for them. They think that if you pursue policies which are negative, you will get elected, or you will be popular, or you will have support of the institutions. And this is happening in India as well as in Pakistan. So I think you have to change the whole framework, in a way, the paradigm that exists in Pakistan and India. So how will that be changed if there is a serious thinking and a rethink on the part of people who matter? Now, if the people who matter are so weak that they cannot possibly, even if they think that what they are doing is not right, but they are pleasing and they can stay in power like this. For instance, I mean, the way that Prime Minister Modi pursued policies against Pakistan, I don't think that was a very wise decision he took, because he completely alienated the people of Pakistan against his government, and also in a way created such hate for Pakistan and India. Similarly, I mean, we have had leaders and continue to have leaders who are not interested in promoting good relations. So your point that even if you don't solve the problems, you can continue to have good relations as far as trade and commerce is concerned, movement of people is concerned, tourism is concerned, like sensible countries like China and others have done. Even China and India have such a great relationship as far as trade and commerce is concerned. And the people are benefiting in both the countries as a consequence of that. America and China have very serious differences about everything on earth. And yet, they cooperate as far as the trade and commerce is concerned. So, you need a leadership which is prepared to. And I think this time, Pakistan has been making gestures to India that, well, let's start off with trade. But then as happened, only the next day they decided not to have trade. So I think it's so silly, and so childish in a way. Pakistan's move first to say that we want to do trade, and then the second day they say no. It's a very sad reflection on Pakistan's leadership. In fact, it's embarrassing, in fact, for people who have watched the situation and would like Pakistan's leadership to be more mature, both not only in talking, but also in actions.
Okay, thank you, General Saab. Dr. Yahya Jahangiri, Saab, may I ask you a question, please? Dr. Yahya Jahangiri. Okay. Faratullah Babar Saab, can I come to you, sir? Faratullah Babar Saab. Faratullah Babar Saab, are you around? I can see your name, but okay. This is, I don't know if Faratullah Babar Saab is not listening to me, but this is very vital that we have seen. Well, China is a wonderful example to have trade with the neighboring countries and even the arch rival at the moment, United States of America. They have their strategic conflicts, and we know China is being impacted by the US different sanctions and the different measures taken against China. Despite that, the trade continues. And the same is the case as we see India and China. So I think we should try to learn model of trade that has no impact or like influenced by the other strategic interests. This is my opinion, and if you agree, but it's wonderful to have different uh, experts from Nepal, India, and unfortunately we could not have a Bangladesh expert from Bangladesh, but it is wonderful to have Dr. Yahya Jahangiri Saab from Iran, and we also had invited, but due to the fear of interruption and disruption, I could not enter many of the people from different locations. More than 70 people were denied access to this webinar, but that was very unfortunate. And the conclusion of this webinar that we see, as Faratullah Babar Saab mentioned, that we have to tackle the militancy and terrorism, and we need to improve bilateral relations, and also like some human rights situations within the countries, as they mentioned about Pakistan, and definitely we see in India as well, and Nepal and other countries, there are some conflicts within the countries as well between different segments of society. So we need to, and the other conclusion was trade and people-to-people contact, and having civil society organizations working with each other will improve the situation, and may, if their civil society platforms are strengthened, they could also voice or like influence or put a little bit of pressure on their governments to have good relations with each other. And another point that came up, like we need to have SARC reactivated, and with the SARC, that definitely we can improve the situation where regional frameworks could work. And meanwhile, in the recent years, we have seen Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, playing very vital role, where like Iran has also been inducted in, and India is there, and Afghanistan is there, and Pakistan is there as well. So that SCO is basically promoting trade and such kind of initiatives where people can have much more benefits. So I think SCO can also be a role model for SARC countries. So for the time being in the region, that we see these two best models, but they are from our friendly country, China, and China has always very wonderful relations with all the people, despite having their conflicts. Yes, Jahangir Sahab, are you there? Okay, with this, I am really thankful to all the participants. Thank you very much, Justice Chauhan Sahab, Haris Khaliq Sahab, Secretary General, Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, Faratullah Babar Sahab, former senator and long cherished, wonderful democratic politician. And thank you so much, Anshul Oja, founder director, Desert Resource Center. You are doing wonderful, and definitely I would love to have collaboration with you on desert conservation strategies and promoting them and mainstreaming into the policies of the region as well as into the national main agenda. And thank you so much, Dr. Yahya Jahangiri Sahab. It was wonderful to have you also. And thank you, Bidur Subedi Sahab, from attending this webinar from Nepal, Kathmandu, Nepal, and Sadia Bukhari Sahab, बहुत शुक्रिया. Nargis Nasir Sahab, thank you very much. और भी बहुत सारे लोग हैं, डॉक्टर रुबीना फरीद साहब अभी हमारे साथ हैं, डॉक्टर खुशबू, थैंक यू सो मच और बहुत शुक्रिया. और अगले हफ्ते हम किसी और मौजू पर बात कर रहे होंगे और डेफिनेटली उसमें आप लोगों की पार्टिसिपेशन भी चाहिए होगी. और ये कुछ जो ग्लिचेस हुए, सॉरी, जो डिस्ट्रप्शन थी बिकॉज ऑफ जो हमारे दोस्त आके बीच में शोर वोर किया और सारी सूरत हाल, उसके लिए मैं माजरत चाहता हूँ जिन स्पीकर्स को, the speakers who were disrupted by the invaders, and we tried to control it. And unfortunately, we could not have many of our friends, those who were generally interested in the webinar. This would be posted on YouTube and shared with all the participants and those, the list that we have. And you can share this YouTube recording to different stakeholders and interested ones in your countries and organization. Once again, thank you very much. Have a wonderful weekend.